I'm Borelstein, and I'm in my Johnny from To the Moon cosplay. As you can see, he's a very deep character because the only thing that I can see about the character from the one picture of him on Steam is that he has a soft V-neck as he's dying in a room with a fucking saline jar or some shit. So, and that's all we really ever know about Johnny. Nothing else is important. So, I want to talk about my history with To the Moon. To the Moon, for me, has been a piece of media that I have avoided like the plague, because one day I had always hoped that I would sit down and I would play the game and I would have an amazing, heartfelt, tear-jerking reaction to whatever the story is, because all I ever see is, people play the game, it's like 4 or 5 hours, and at the end, people are really choked up. It's a really sad story. Maybe it's sad and depressing. Maybe it's sad because, it's such a beautiful conclusion to a life of difficulty, whatever it is. And I knew the basic premise, which is that these doctors help somebody go by going into their memories when they're dying, and somehow that helps them. And that's all I really knew. And I have been sitting with this game in my backlog for like 8 fucking years, hoping that it would live up to the hype. Now, I have not built the game up in my mind in any way. I've just avoided it. And then today, yesterday was the day I decided to play it. So what did I think? This game is my new most hated media that I have ever experienced in my life. Previously, that was Mr. Nobody, the movie with the dumb Jared Leto, the Jared Leto movie. Mr. Nobody is the worst movie I've ever seen, and that used to be the piece of media that I hated more than anything. And this game has now taken the crown. Nothing will ever top, I think, this game in terms of just how fucking bad it is. So let's get into it, I guess. Let's go over the plot, and we'll see some problems. So the story starts, and we have 2 doctors. We got Dr. Watts, and we got Dr. Rosaline, as like I like to call her in the game. And immediately something is off. Watts runs over a squirrel and then crashes into a tree, and they're bickering about, at least it's a company car, blah, 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 all the stupid stuff. And then they get into the house and they introduce themselves, and you can find some interesting little things, before the game ever forces you to see it or tells you, you can go in and see that there is a sheet of music that the kids are playing as you're approaching the house, and you can go look at the sheet of music, and the kids all scurry away, and it's For River by Johnny Wiles. And you find out later on that River is his dead wife, but not too later on, like in about 5 seconds. So they go up to Johnny, and the doctors immediately, they will not stop bickering. They get out, they're in the doorway before moving into the room where Johnny is, and they're still fucking bickering, and it's not funny. It's never funny. Nothing they say is funny at any point in the game. Nothing they say is fucking funny. And then they get into like where Johnny is, and then there's an actual doctor, and then there's the maid / caretaker, end of life, whatever person, Lily. And it's never fucking, it's insane. The doctor is just like just boring doctor person. I don't even think they have a fucking name. And then Lily is like, oh, I'm the caretaker. I've been here like 2 years or whatever. And then Dr. Watts and Dr. Rosaline are still bickering and arguing in front of these people about like how they're going to do their job. They sound like the most unprofessional people ever. So here's the first problem in the game, is that you have 2 characters who are supposedly doctors. And they are written as if they are like 20-something dirtbags that hate their job, that don't have any sense of professionalism or seriousness. They think it like that's the character. But then in the style of the writing, if you remember that really dog shit improv style of comedy that was like in movies in the early 2010s, where characters would just sit there, like comedians in movies would just literally be shot, in the lamest shot imaginable, and they would just be doing spit takes of dog shit improv. That's how these characters are written, is that something will happen in the story, and then Dr. Watts will say something, usually insulting the story itself, insulting how the story is melodramatic or overdone or just irreverent. Dr. Watts is irreverent in the worst way possible. He is an unserious loser who should not be in the story at all. Dr. Rosaline, or whatever the fuck her name is a little bit better, but not by much, only because she's contrasted against Dr. Watts, who is just terrible. I don't know how these people are doctors. They are the worst humans I've ever seen in media in my entire life, and they ruin the entire story. So, the plot. These doctors show up, and they work for the Sigmund Corporation. And the Sigmund Corporation, basically, due to ethics, I guess, only come out to help dying people fulfill their final wish by going into their memories and altering their own memories so that seconds before they die, they believed that they lived a different life, so that I guess they can die without regrets. Now, mind you, this is never stated in the game. It is never stated the mission statement for the Sigmund Corporation. It's never stated that, oh, we want these people to die without regrets. And there's just never any argument for what they're doing. And who would even pay for this? You have to think about this logically. Why would you want to pay for a service so that you believe a false memory that you're going to have for literally like 2 seconds before you die? Who wants that? Who wants to believe something for 2 seconds and then they die? What service is that? So now you're probably understanding a little bit that this game rips off Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, rips off Inception, and then there's another fucking story too. But yeah, so this rips off media that came out well before it, and it rips it off in a really dumb way. So Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, that's a movie where characters get things taken out of their memory that they want to forget, like a bad ex-boyfriend or ex-girlfriend or whatever, or some relationship, or maybe some trauma or something or whatever. That makes sense. But in this game, it's literally give me different memories so that the 2 seconds that I have left to live, I think something else about my life and then I die. And that's it. There's no discussion of like how it modifies their soul for the afterlife. There's no discussion about how this does fucking anything meaningful at all. It's totally masturbatory. And then you also have to consider that this man lived his entire life with this woman. He is an old man who lives in a house by the sea, by a lighthouse, and from the outside looking in, it looks like he has had everything. And then that wasn't enough. And that in his dying breath, he's like, oh, I still want to go to the fucking moon. And it's like, dude, this is billionaire booner fucking masturbation. This is disgusting. So obviously, the reality of the story is a little bit different. It's a little bit okay. But let's get into it. So, Act 1... I'm going to go over this pretty fast because I hate it. I hate Act 2 the most though, but Act 1 is also dumb. So Act 1 basically is the gameplay section where basically you go into little segmented sections of Johnny's memory and you have to find little mementos so that you can break the memento sentimental locks to jump further in the past. So they have to start from when he's old and then jump further to when he's younger. And you keep doing this and you keep doing this. And every time there's like a little puzzle thing and it's like, okay, whatever, sure. That's cute. And while this is going on, Dr. Watts is engaging in his hilarious commentary about the story. And the worst part is that he's actually like insulting the story like over and over and over again, which just comes off as the writer's really like insecurities coming out. Like he couldn't just have the story be the story. Like he had to work in how bad his own story is at every opportunity with this Watts character. I do not fucking get it. But yeah, so that's plot 1. And then they run into an issue where they cannot get to him when he was a child. So they try to inject his motivation of wanting to go to the moon when he is like in high school. And it doesn't work. And we're not really told why it doesn't work. From our understanding, Johnny wants to go to the moon, but he can't give them a reason. He doesn't know why. He's like, I just want to go to the moon. And they're like, why? He's like, I don't know. So it's like, okay, we got this dumb boomer that wants to go to the moon, doesn't even know why. Like, thanks a lot, boomer. Okay, whatever. And then Act 2 is just a waste of time. Act 2 is basically that problem of not being able to go to Johnny's younger memories is literally solved off screen on a phone call that Dr. Watts has with the company, where they're talking about frequencies. It's just literally solved off screen while you just walk around and do a bunch of pointless bullshit. Act 2 is a waste of time. It should not have even been written in. But there's a reason why they couldn't go further back into Johnny's memories. And this is when the story gets really, really, really fucking stupid really fast. And I was able to tolerate up to this point, but it gets worse. So they go back in Johnny's memories with the right frequencies when he's a little child, and they discover that Johnny actually was a twin, and his twin was Joey, which the story had set up earlier because the mom refers to Johnny as Joey, and Johnny says that that was the name of their grandfather, but actually that was the name of his brother / the favorite son. We don't know what happens to Johnny's dad. He's not in the picture. The writer just didn't care to have a dad in the story, which I'm fine with. I don't really care either. So we're in the flashback and we see mom backs over and kills Joey as he's chasing a little soccer ball. And then he's dead. And also there's like a weird 7th, 11th hour twist that's like, Johnny had a bunk bed in his room. But I think he also has the bunk bed in his room when he's dying. Because there's like a little bunk bed. You can't tell it's a bunk bed because of how they place the object in RPG Maker in old Johnny's house. But it's the same bunk bed that when he was a kid. So it's like, did he bring up the bunk bed just to like look at it and feel sad? What the fuck? I don't know, whatever. But anyway, yeah, Joey died, mom killed him, and then the explanation for why Johnny doesn't remember this is that Johnny's mom somehow gave Johnny beta blockers, which are not over the counter. You have to be prescribed them, and they're usually prescribed for like hypertension or heart conditions. So how did she get these? Huh? What the fuck is going on? So yeah, she overdosed Johnny on beta blockers to make him lose his memory of her killing his twin. And then that's how he forgot his memories of when he was a child. And there's one important memory in that childhood. But I need to backtrack now because I haven't talked about River, which is fine because at the end of the game, we know nothing about Johnny or River. River is Johnny's wife. We don't know Johnny's job. We don't know their financial situation. We know that it's going to be hard, but we don't know anything about it. Other than that, we don't know any hobbies other than Johnny likes pickled olives. So in terms of like writing, like amateurism, we found one character trait that just is immutable, pickled olives. And that's it. For River, what did she like? Oh, well, guess what? The whole story is about basically coming to terms with River is autistic. And in the game, they treat autism as if it's like a terminal illness, but then later on, River gets diagnosed with an actual terminal illness. And it's never said if Johnny needs to like make sacrifices for River, if River is able to work a job, what River does for anything. And there's this big mystery because River is just folding paper origami rabbits and then having this conversation with Johnny about what do you see? What do you see? Tell me what you see. And then like carrying around a platypus doll that she has carried around with her since she got it from him at the age of like fucking 6 or something. I don't even know how old they were. Maybe they were 10. I have no idea. But they were young kids. And that's when Johnny gave her this platypus doll. And she has carried it with her for 80 fucking years until she died. What the fuck? So, you're probably wondering, why is River making all these origami things? So, we finally get to the one tear jerking scene. If you play the game and you get to the scene when Johnny and River are talking on the wooden log, shut the game off after this scene and you will be a happy camper. Don't play to the end because it is the worst conclusion to a story I've ever seen in my life. So, what doesn't Johnny remember? What caused River to have this mental breakdown so late in life? What the fuck happened? Well, what happened is that Johnny, as a little boy, was hanging out by a log looking at the sky. And then River comes along and she's also, I want to look at the sky too. That's my spot. And this sky, it's full of all these stars, and they're having this cute little conversation. And if you're reading this, it's dawning on you, oh shit, this is what Johnny didn't remember, because he got his memories lost after this, after Joey dies, and he didn't remember the promise that they made, which the promise was, hey, next year when the carnival's in town, let's meet up here again. Now, mind you, as like 2 10-year-olds, that is a stupid promise, and this is bordering on Goodnight Pun Pun levels of like stupid fucking like just stupidity. Like Goodnight Pun Pun. When did this manga come out? Because this is another story that it published between 2007 and 2008. Where it ran to 2013, and this game came out in 2011. So that's another story that this rips off, and it rips off in multiple ways, because after the first major arc in Goodnight Pun Pun, there's a double panel spread of all the little kids looking up at a beautiful sky, and specifically a particular like constellation as well. Constellations play a big story element in the fantastical elements of Goodnight Pun Pun. So, and this game does the same thing with constellations as well, because River is like, oh, did you ever try to draw rabbits in the sky or whatever? And he's like, oh, with constellations, yeah. So then this is it. Then they see it, the camera pans up and up and up. You don't actually see the rabbit or whatever, but the moon is the rabbit's belly. And they see the rabbit, and they're like, oh yeah, in the moon. And if we ever get lost, we can go meet again on the rabbit's belly, the moon. So this is where Johnny's desire to go to the moon was, because River is autistic, and apparently she's so autistic that she cannot just say, hey, don't you remember when we were little kids and we looked at the moon? Don't you remember that? She can't just talk. She instead tries to communicate with him by making paper origami rabbits and have the same conversation that they had when they were little. Somehow she remembers this conversation verbatim and tries to have the same conversation with him to get him to remember their promise to, if they lose each other, to meet back up on the moon. But she's doing this while they're still alive, even into old age. And the reason she does this is because eventually Johnny reveals to River that the reason he initially was attracted to her was because he didn't want to go for like a normal girl. He doesn't even say that. He just says he wants to go out with somebody that will modify himself and make him stand out and be different. And that's it. That's his reason for going out, wanting to go out with River. And there's an interesting kind of like thing there where like when he first asks her out, she's like, oh no, I can't because you didn't give me a date or time. And she has the platypus. So it's like, in her mind, she's probably like, oh, you forgot our promise to meet up a year later, and you're acting like you don't even know me. And now you're asking me out in high school. What the hell? You have to at least give me a proper date or whatever, right? But so much of the game is spent on autism being this like magical diagnosis that can just be anything that the plot needs it to be, and it's really insulting. Like, I have multiple friends on the spectrum. I myself am on the spectrum to a degree. Author, you need to meet more people with autism, because clearly you've never met a single one. Do not write about what you do not know, because it is so offensive and stupid. It becomes a joke. So, and it's going to get worse. So this is the best scene in the game. The two little kids, they meet up. They have a nice conversation about rabbit constellations in the sky. They promise to meet up next year. And if they ever lose each other, they're going to meet up on the fucking moon. This is a lot of emotional weight for one conversation, which I do have to admit is pretty dumb. So immediately following this nice little scene, Dr. Watts shows up and it's like, ugh, all that for this? Blah, 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 blah. I'm a fucking curmudgeon fucking loser. So immediately I just hate the game again because Dr. Watts shows up. And then the problem starts. These characters can't get Johnny to the moon, and they can't figure it out. And now they don't really try at all. But apropos of nothing, Dr. Borelstein is like, the only way we can get him to the moon is by literally erasing River from his memory. Which creates one of the moral quandaries of the game, his dying wish was to go to the moon. Does that mean that you will change any memory to get him to go to the moon, even if his desire to go to the moon is born out of the fact that he had an entire lifelong relationship with River, and the reason he wants to go to the moon is because that was what she was trying to get him to think. Now, obviously, she didn't want him to really go to the fucking moon. You're not going to go to the moon as a 60-plus-year-old or 80-year-old man. Like, that makes no fucking sense at all. It was a symbolic gesture. River was making a symbolic gesture, is that you... The reason we're together is not what I believed, and I want that back, and I want you to remember. And so she was trying to create a symbolic remembrance for Johnny. And Johnny is so fucking stupid. He's like, I go to the moon? I go to the moon? That's what I do? Duh. Now, mind you, Johnny deserves this criticism because early on, after it's found out that River is autistic, you know, she's on the spectrum, the doctor's like, oh, hey, here's this book about people, you know, it's an older book, so it's actually, they use the term Asperger's. And then Johnny just, and the doctor's like, oh, do you want a book too, or do you want to read it too? And he's like, no. He's like, don't you want to know more about your wife's condition? No, not really. What the fuck? This is the loving character we're supposed to sympathize with? He's a fucking monster. What a fucking pile of shit. Johnny deserves a rot in the fucking ground. So you know this person that you've been in a relationship with since high school, and presumably it's a good relationship because we're not given reason to believe otherwise. He makes incredible sacrifices for her, but he doesn't want to learn about her diagnosis. What the fuck? That's insane. This guy is a monster. He's fucking stupid as fuck. Oh yeah, also, apparently the game takes place in a country where old people don't have healthcare, because also they don't talk about what she has diagnosed that's like late stage but curable. The game doesn't talk about anything in specifics, and I think it's because the writer just doesn't have any life experience at all. Like, you can be like, oh, it's a fucking stage 4 pancreatic cancer. Like, that's pretty, like, you're fucked. If you have stage 4 pancreatic cancer, like, that's a death sentence. It's over for you. Like, you couldn't just find a terminal illness that's hard to come back from. Like, but just do one Google search, dude. It's so easy. Like, come on. It pisses me off. It makes me so mad. So, then the doctors have a moral battle where it's like, oh, Dr. Watts doesn't want to go through with removing River from his memories. And Dr. Rose Celine is like, well, this is the only way we can get him to the moon. And it's like, but we were removing his reason for wanting to go to the moon in the first place. I'm on Rose Celine's side, but the ultimate issue isn't that there's a moral battle of like remove River or not remove River. That's not the issue. That issue is actually like an add-on issue. The primary issue is that Dr. Watts and Dr. Rose Celine are so fucking stupid at their job and so uncreative that they cannot find a way to get Johnny to the moon. Now, Dr. Watts does try a whole bunch of stuff to get him to the moon, but it's like really stupid stuff. It's like, hey, I'm doing a presentation on NASA and all this stupid stuff. And it's like, dude, all you have to do is change the memory of Johnny getting run over or just help. All you have to do is literally here's what you need to do. Here, I can solve the plot right now. After Johnny gets run over, or Joey gets run over, and then the beta blocker thing happens, all you need to do is recreate the memory of meeting River, because they're in Inception. They can change reality when they're in the memories. They can literally augment reality and throw around fucking like trees and shit, which is at one point in the game happens. So if you can change reality, you are a god in this world. Just recreate the scene with River after he had the beta blockers, so then he has his motivation to go to the moon again. Because the doctors act as if astronauts cannot have spouses. Like, if you are an astronaut, you can have no romantic relationship whatsoever. That's how these doctors act. Now, if you do a Google search, you're going to find out real fast that astronauts, oh, it turns out, yeah, they actually do have spouses. I don't know. This the writer never learned that, I fucking guess. He's a fucking moron. Holy shit. So now, Act 3, we spend, like, all this time. You're like, I'm not even joking. Dr. Watts is throwing pineapple trees down a hallway in a school and going over spike traps, trying to chase down Dr. Rosaline. It is so dumb. It is so dumb. And then you get to the end of the game, and Johnny gets into NASA, and guess who's there? River. River also got into NASA. Now, here is my big problem with the game. If River was so competent that she was able to get into NASA, why couldn't Johnny and River just got into NASA together as a couple? Because the beginning part of the game led me to believe that autism was a debilitating diagnosis that meant that River was a disabled person that needed to be cared for. And now you're telling me that she can be in NASA. Now, I know the dick riders of this game are going to come in and say, well, those are Johnny's memories. Like, he's just trying to remember River in a way. So, like, River is able to, like, just be there in NASA or whatever, right? But, like, you can't have both. You can't have River be so emotionally frail and disabled that, like, oh, just learning that you forgot your promise. And it's not that he even forgot. Like, it's not like he made a character failure. It's not. Goodnight Pun Pun is better written than this, and I hate Goodnight Pun Pun. But in Goodnight Pun Pun, the character makes a failure in himself. He fails to live up to his own obligations. But in this game, he forgot because his mom overdosed him on beta blockers, which is, mind you, this is not how beta blockers work. So the game is just in fantasy land completely. But who cares? Whatever. The game fucking sucks ass. And then at the end, they're going up to the moon. They're both in NASA, and they're holding hands. And then, literally, they don't even get to the moon, by the way. They do not get to the fucking moon. They don't get to the moon. They're in the ship. They're in the Earth's atmosphere. And then they hold hands. And then this thing that was set up at the beginning of the game, where like, oh, here's a heart monitor so you can see how Johnny's doing. It goes beep, beep, me, and he's dead. So for a whole of 2 seconds, he got to spend time in space with River, going to the moon, and then he died. What was the value of that? I have to ask you. How can you possibly... What is this? I want to know more about this world that these people live in. How are two doctors... They have the title of doctor. How are two doctors wasting an entire days of time just to give a dying man 2 seconds of different memories? And he's unconscious. He's in a coma. He never talks to them. What is the value of that? Could you imagine if every doctor left being a doctor to go join this Sigmund Corp? What the fuck? How do you go to medical school? I mean, because they're maybe it's like they're doctorates, right? Maybe they have PhDs and they're doctors of like English or doctors of philosophy or whatever, and maybe they have gender studies degrees. I don't fucking know. I mean, obviously Dr. Watts doesn't have one because he's a fucking sexist moron. Oh, that's the other thing too. This game clearly, I think, is written by ESL and translated or something, or because there are some lines in this game that are just so badly written or translated. Nobody would ever write or speak like the way some of these lines are written. It is astonishingly bad dialogue at times. It is almost unreadable. And I read the whole fucking game out loud too, because I was streaming it. So fuck you for saying otherwise, because I actually read the fucking shitty dialogue. And there's a big difference between reading shitty dialogue and speaking shitty dialogue. So yeah, fuck you. But yeah, it's a waste of time. And they never deal with the obvious. Why can't an astronaut have a spouse? Why can't Johnny? You could solve if we're just, the problem is that we have two creative people that are supposed to have creative solutions to problems. And there is an easy creative solution to this problem. Just re-inject the memories of Johnny meeting River after he had his memories erased from the beta blockers. You could easily do that. But instead, they never talk about that because the game needs to have a problem. and then create this circumventional solution that's supposed to be a tearjerker reaction thing, where it's like, oh no, he lost the love of his life to go to the moon, so now he lost the motivation to go to the moon, and he's going to the moon, he doesn't know why, but somewhere in his memories he still thinks about River, so then River shows up at NASA, so when he's going to the moon, River shows up and they hold hands. Like, I wanted to love this game. I wanted to be floored by this game. I wanted my fucking cock and balls to be smashed and mangled, and I wanted to be a blithering baby. And all at best I got was choked up during the little log scene, because that scene recontextualizes almost that whole, even in the carnival too, recontextualizes everything in the game. Because Johnny actually doesn't love pickled olives, his brother did. And all those other little things. So it's like, it's interesting in that way. That's the only good part of the game, is that everything gets recontextualized in the carnival scene, and the scene where Johnny and River are looking up at the stars. That is the only moment in the game where there's any semblance of good writing at all. But then immediately after that, the stupid doctors show up and start shitting all over the story again. And they're not funny. Nothing they say is funny. Like, stop talking. I hate those doctor characters so much. And the worst part is that if you look up any media about this game, it always shows the two doctor characters' silhouettes. And it's like, you are the least interesting characters in the game. Get out of the story, get out of the script. I learned more about Watts and Borelstein than I did about River or Johnny. I don't know. Like I said, we don't know what either of them did for a job. We don't know how they spent their lives. We know two of their friends, but their friends are kind of weird. We just don't know fucking anything about these characters. Like, at the end of the day, nothing. Like, you are an 80-year-old dying man, and we know nothing about you. How is that possible? Have you ever met an old person? Old people fucking love talking about their life. This writer of this game has never met a person over the age of 45. Because, holy fuck. Old people love talking about their life. They love talking about their memories. Like, holy shit. I can say this. I've met old people. I worked at a geropsych unit. I know what it's like to talk to old people. So yeah, this is my new most hated medium. And I would never advocate for anything. I would never tell people to tell the author never to write again. I would never tell anyone that the writer should never write again. I would never do that. But I know a guy who would. So he's going to come in and say some things that I don't agree with, but I want to give a platform just to show you what some bad people say. Just to show you like kind of what's out there in the world, okay? So just, okay, 1 second, okay, I gotta go get him. There's this other guy. So I'm Borelstein, remember, okay? But I'm gonna go get this other guy, okay? I have to turn the camera off. He's a little shy. His name is Barley. Okay, let me go get him. Oh, I fucking hate the writer of this game. He's fucking terrible. Go to his videos, comment how fucking terrible he is. His name is Ken Gore. We hate that guy. We hate him so fucking much. I hate him. I hope he never writes anything again. I left him in comment on his video telling him that he should never write and he's an insecure loser. Oh, wow. I guess Barley left in a big puff of smoke. He was so mad. But like I said, I don't agree with anything that guy said. Barley, we hate that guy here and we don't agree with him. But yeah, To the Moon, 0 out of 10. My new most hated media that I've ever read and ever experienced. And I dare you to fucking challenge my opinion on this, because holy fuck, this is the worst kind of media, because it doesn't even respect itself and it doesn't even respect your time. Yeah, that was it. And if you liked it, I feel sorry for you. You got to raise your standards.